All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode here. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Ben. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm good. Um, I've been listening to My First Million a lot, the podcast that you know. We both got to hear the one host speak. Maybe you've heard both of them, but
I've heard
it's
both. Yeah,
Sam Parr. Okay, yeah, Sam Parr and Sean Puri, however you pronounce that. Uh, the reason I bring that up is because I drop a topic in there that I heard him say something about, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And dude, I like them both, especially Sean's attitude to like life and business. I love. Um, I try to. It's there's stuff I want to emulate about how I build my life and
hmm
business, but it's cool. But yeah, maybe we'll get to some of that stuff. Uh, but yeah, I threw some topics at you because some of them are things I'm figuring out or exploring for my own business, and uh, they're very relevant to any of this brand online world. So
for sure. Well,
you pick, and we'll go from there.
the one that caught my eye because I think I know what it might be, but I haven't heard the term before is what is a binge bank?
Yeah. So this is from Sean, and I heard him say it this morning. It's funny you can kind of you hear someone like sum something up so perfectly,
hmm
and you're like, damn, that's really good. So I'll just give you like the very short definition. So he went on this podcast with David Perel, who's a writing guy, actually a great follow. He has a course called Rite of Passage, and his whole thing is about writing and how you kind of build a personal brand, establish authority, and turn it into a business. But so we had Sean on, and he talked about doing research for the podcast around Sean and how he went down this rabbit hole of his content. And obviously he has a big podcast, but he started exploring different things he'd done in different blog posts, content, and how he became more and more impressed the more he learned. And then it kind of culminated in this. I guess he had this PDF doc of some of the best business lessons he'd compiled, and he kind of found that, and he was just like, "Wow, this guy's really cool. He's got a lot of value to share." And so that was the context of it. But then Sean kind of addressed that as an aside, and he said, "Yeah, what you want to do is have a binge bank for people to uh, be able to find if they start if they see you
Mm.
online or see what you're doing. You want them to be able to discover this trail of breadcrumbs for what you're about, what you've accomplished, what you're doing, kind of who you are and what you're about." And what was cool though is because he has a big following now, but he highlighted the fact that you should do this even if your videos don't get very many views, or if it doesn't seem like you've got a big following. Still creating this bank of content where
Mhm.
that one person who's going to find you interesting and get excited about what you're doing is going to be able to find that trail of breadcrumbs and just consume. And right when he said that, I was like, dude, I've done this so many times. I'll see a tweet, and then I go to their Twitter profile. Oh, do they have YouTube? Oh, like hopefully they have YouTube. Consume a few of the videos there, whatever it might be. Sometimes you'll search, oh, has this person been on any podcasts? Like, I'd love to hear more of their philosophy.
Mhm.
I think I even did that with you, dude, back in the day. I was like, oh, like where else is Greg like talking about email stuff or whatever it is? And you find these little pockets. Uh, and I was like, that's really cool because I definitely do that. And hearing that from him was like, yeah, what a great asset to create, even if you feel like you don't have a big brand or a big following yet. So that is a binge bank, and dude, that's what we're making right here.
Yeah, I love that's a cool idea. That's a cool idea. I haven't heard that terminology before, but I hearing you describe it, I've absolutely experienced that. Absolutely. And honestly, I'm in the middle of binging on somebody's bank right now. And
Mhm.
it's someone that it, the person who kind of got me into copywriting as a skill set, to be completely honest. So I had him as a guest inside of my private community um, earlier this month, actually. And, this guy was kind of one of my first mentors. And when I first found him, I dove into content and stuff and bought a bunch of his stuff. And then I ended up buying lifetime access for his vault of everything he's ever created. And I mean, at the time, even now, like it was a couple grand. So at the time, that was like That was crazy money at the time that I bought that.
Mhm.
And even now, like that's not an impulse buy, right? But after having him on, I'm like, oh man, I haven't dug into this guy's vault in a little while. And I opened it up um like earlier this week. And of course, like over the last several years, he's added a lot more stuff. I just haven't been actively in that because I kind of learned things and then kind of went to, doing other things. And I started going through it and I'm like, this is still freaking golden stuff. So I'm binging through a bunch of audio on my Kajabi app, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of hours, and this is all the paid content, right? But I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh man, I'd kind of like to know more. So it's actually selling me on the idea of probably booking some expensive one-on-ones with the guy down the road to kind of tease out some details and stuff. So yeah, give people a place where they can just fall down the rabbit hole of you, right? um that creates like that is people get into this binge consumption mode when they're first excited about something, and if you don't have it there, you kind of miss the opportunity to get them hooked for life. So I love that idea. Binge bank, I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I thought it was so spot on because I've done it so many times, and it's just another reason, and it's another, maybe to kind of like bring this back around, it's another reason why you should make content and uh share your ideas and kind of what you're working on. And that can even help you maybe see things from a different perspective, where you're like, oh, well, what would I talk about, or how do I start making content? And it's kind of like, what if you could just package out some of these lessons that you've learned, or some of these experiences that you've had, so that, if you were to get on a Zoom call with someone, they'd be like, they'd already have an idea of kind of what you're doing, or what you're about.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I really resonate with that idea, and I was like, that's cool. I got to do more of that.
Quick question about that. Do you think it's important that it's like multimodal or multi-channel? Like do people need to be able to find you on Instagram and YouTube and podcasts and a blog? Or is it okay to just have that one thing that you do where people dive deep? Like how do you binge into people's binge banks? Do you
Yeah,
go multimodal, or is it okay to be on one channel?
here's what I think. I think like the longer form is like the more valuable stuff, but then distribution is like how would someone maybe bump into you. So just like what my experience, if I, for instance, if they're on Twitter or Instagram even, I'm usually like, oh, cool, like the vibe, like kind of what they're sharing. Where does this guy talk about his ideas? Is my immediate next thought. So I'll search YouTube or Spotify.
Yeah.
So even if you've been on someone else's podcast, or you can go on a couple podcasts and talk about what you do if you don't have your own podcast yet, where there's a couple YouTube videos where you talk about like your main ideas, or kind of the central things, because that's what I do. I'm like, yeah, I find someone on Twitter, I'm like, gosh, they have like a YouTube channel, or have they
Hmm.
been on what's their story? That's what I love sometimes, finding someone on someone else's podcast. You're like, okay, I want to get their story here, and
Yeah.
that's often someone's guesting somewhere else. So yeah, I think short form is great place to start. But if you can, there's value in having those longer term, or those longer form assets that are kind of floating around it there.
Okay. Cool. All right. That's good perspective. I think that topic and how we addressed it leads naturally into this next idea of personal brand for dummies. So let me know
Yeah.
your thoughts on what you meant by that.
Yeah, it's in the same vein for sure. And I think it's something people are hearing more and more about, personal brand. And for me, anyways, it's always something I've really liked that idea, and I've been like, gosh, like I want that. But the immediate next thought has almost been, oh, but I probably can't do that, or I'm not sure how to do that. Or immediate comparison to someone who I'm not, and I'm being like, well, I don't have what they have, so I probably can't do it. But the reality is, this is just about um, kind of creating a profile for yourself online, but not just, oh, I have a Facebook account, I have a Gmail, and I have a Instagram account. But what do people bump into? What do people bump into online when they when they come across you. And this is where, with only a little bit of effort and a little bit of strategy, you can get beyond just here's my picture from vacation and like here's me with my family to uh this is kind of what I do. This is kind of what I'm interested in. And here's how you can interact with that or learn about that. So
Hmm.
it's kind of a small switch to just just sharing kind of that generic stuff that, like, we can joke about what people share on Facebook these days. Great meal tonight. And it's like, okay, nice. But it's kind of like this living resume. It's kind of like your new resume is what it is.
Hmm.
And resumes really are dead. Like, that's maybe a bit of a cliche now, but how can you have kind of this living resume of what you're about that can open up opportunities for you?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think about it and how to make it easier, because it doesn't mean you need followers right away. All it means is there's some way for people to bump into your your uh your ideas, your interests, your
Hmm.
projects. Give people a place, an opportunity to bump into that. And it's your I think actually that same dude, David Crowley, I think he calls it becoming a citizen in the digital world, which might
Hmm.
sound kind of like weird or utopian, but I think that's a good way of putting it as well.
Okay. Do you have anybody who you think does this really well, like examples to share of who people should check out?
Yeah, so I mean, typically by the time I find anyone online, they've refined this pretty well.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to think maybe of an earlier stage uh example. So maybe I'll circle back to that. But I mean, at the very least, having having an account, having some social account where you share what you do. What would be a good example of this? I mean,
One.
Twitter might be the greatest micro example of this because people are intentionally going to that platform to do this. So in a
Mhm.
snapshot, you can go to their bio, and what you'll begin to learn if you get into that space is what creates a good bio that would make someone want to follow you, that would convert well. And I think
Mhm.
that's a great way of thinking about it. So um, whether it's I help brands do this or I create high performing, Facebook ads, and then there's your pinned tweet as an example. Um, I think that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I don't have a specific example.
Okay. One person that came to mind as you were describing that, I don't know if you follow Eddie Kwan on Twitter.
I think I
He's
do.
okay. He's a disciple of Ben Settles, I think. But
Okay.
I mean, he's built a very strong personal brand around just his personality. And, he's got an email list and sells stuff on it and teaches stuff. And I mean, you know pretty quickly if you vibe with him or not.
Mhm.
But he mixes in kind of the lifestyle that he lives in with the things that he can help people with. So it's kind of like,
Mhm.
hey, instead of just posting a picture of, like a vacation picture or a picture of his meal, like that's tied in with the reason that I can live this lifestyle is because of this other stuff I do, and you can learn more here. And it's
Yep.
not even explicitly stated all the time, but it's always this portrayal of this is the life I'm living, and if it looks appealing to you, you can learn more. Follow me, get on my list, that kind of thing.
Yep. Well, then, based on that, I'm going to use you as the example, Greg, because I already mentioned how I got into some of your content earlier on, and I was like, "What's this guy about?" And the reason for that was because you were in the paid community that we were both in, the capitalism community, and I think this was before you were a coach or anything. You were just always this dude in the Facebook group who was like providing value and sharing little tidbits of, to be honest, I didn't even know what your business was for a while, or what you did, but it was little pieces of an ecom brand you worked with, or a way you'd help someone else out, or It was little pieces of this where I was like, this guy seems like helpful in sort of the business world, but I don't really know what he's about. But how can I like learn more about that? And you were still like, you were kind of in the early stages of developing some of your personal brand at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you've got a place where it lives, Email Magic, you mix it in with your Facebook posts, kind of like you were talking about there. It's you
Mhm.
sprinkle, okay, I'm home doing this, but like, why am I home? It's because, well, I have this, set up with some different businesses where it allows me to do this. And I think that's like an easy way to start doing it is
Yeah.
you might already be, sharing things or helping people out, but it's like you can let people know that you're doing that.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes
That
sense.
becomes a personal brand.
That it's funny. And then what you have to think, it's kind of like learning to drive a car. You have to think about it really hard at first, but then it kind of becomes subconscious. Like when you're posting your vacation pic, like this stuff just becomes a part of what you convey naturally. You know what I mean? Like tying all
Yep.
those things together just become how you operate. Funny example. Funny example. Uh, Yesterday, I turned off my computer, pulled the kids out of private school, and the entire family went to eat at a Mexican restaurant. But it's this gigantic, like, destination Mexican restaurant called Casa Bonita. And if you don't know what that is, you've got to look it up. Look up the connection to South Park and Trey Parker and Matt Stone. And they used to have crappy food, but now it's better. So we spent 8 people went to lunch at a Mexican restaurant. And in total, we spent between like $50 and $60 a head
Mhm.
on lunch.
Mhm.
And um, the experience that they create, like it's like this world inside. It's not just a restaurant, it's like a world that you go into. Totally crazy. And I could just do like an entire episode on their crazy business model. Dude, this is a restaurant that has an email wait list of something like 600,000 people. You can't walk up to the door and get in. You have to be invited to pre-purchase tickets, and then you've got to show up at your allotted time slot on the day you pick, and then walk inside and spend even more money. And it's an interesting story to tell, right? But in telling that story, I'm also letting people know that I can just walk away from my computer in the middle of the day. And I pulled my kids out of a private school, and then we spent like $500 on lunch.
Mhm.
And all of that, like I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not explicitly
Yep.
saying, oh, hey, look at my Lambo, but I am conveying that I kind of live to some extent, I live a different life than a lot of people imagine, right?
Yep.
And so then they're like, well, what's that guy's deal? Like, what does he do? Why
Yeah.
does he get to pull his kids out of school on a Thursday and do all this crazy stuff? So, um, I was kind of creating a post or an email about that, and those elements are all in there. And as we're talking about this, I'm like, I'm thinking consciously about all those little pieces that I sprinkle in, but I'm not thinking about it consciously when I actually write it. It's just part of the content that I create now. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. And also another thing that's kind of coming through, which can help maybe really bring home this concept of like the personal brand for dummies. It's like, how can you create an like how can you turn kind of what you're doing into another asset? So like I love what you said about, okay, you were already doing some of this stuff. The lessons become apparent that you tie them to, but at the same time, there's this kind of circle where then that feeds back. Like the fact that you're sharing it can give you some credibility. It can become content, which can essentially maybe feed back into your business if someone else, you know, finds that. But contrast that with the rigidity of, not only the job that you cannot take the break from and go out for lunch with your family, but also the setup of opportunities in your life where you can't switch lanes or explore other opportunities because it's very binary. Well, if I'm not at this job, I'm unemployed. And or if I'm not on this regular schedule, am I taking a sick day? Like that's kind of an extreme example, but the idea of like a personal brand for dummies is like, how can you create more like richness in your life by kind of sharing and opening up more opportunities that allow for a little bit more of like a holistic approach to your life. So I don't just think it's a digital thing. It could be because you start posting on LinkedIn, you never thought of freelancing, but someone approaches you with an opportunity that becomes your first kind of business venture. And suddenly there's another like dimension or degree of opportunity in your life that you did not have before. And then this starts to compound. So the personal brand for dummies, I think is the first part of it is just realizing the potential opportunities that can come from sharing a little bit beyond just we went out for dinner. My dog, this is my cute dog. It's like it's hard to open up opportunities that way, but if you start to share a little bit more about what you're doing and why, or what you want to be doing,
Mhm.
opportunities can start to come to you there. So it's almost just like opening that door. It doesn't mean you need a following. It doesn't mean you've got to be even a consistent content creator. It can be as simple as letting you opening the door to new opportunities, finding you, so that I mean, essentially, you can just enrich your life.
Yeah. I want to add one thing. I think that's really important. I want to add one thing because um, people hear that, and then a lot of them are probably intimidated by that idea that, oh, wait, I haven't really accomplished anything, or I don't have anything to share. I don't have anything of value. And that's absolutely not true. And the trick to get started is to look at your situation, and no matter what it is, I promise you there's something about your life that other people want, that they would envy, right? So, if you're not where you are um, financially, maybe you have an awesome relationship
Mhm.
with your spouse or with your kids. Like maybe you get to spend a lot of time with the family, or sometimes if you are, I mean, because I know there are people in reverse of that, right? They've got all the financial stuff taken care of, but relationships have fallen apart. Or maybe you're struggling with those two things, but you've got health nailed, right? You're in really good shape. And despite struggling with this and that, like you found a way to maintain health and fitness and this and that. But like everybody has something that's going really well that if other people really look at it, they would envy it or they would want it. So find the positive spin on something and then kind of talk about that. Like and on it, yeah, just to reflect back, like I did this a second ago, right? I don't have a Lambo or a private jet. Like I'm not one of those guys. Don't really aspire to be, but I can leave in the middle of the day and go to do a fun activity with my family.
Mhm.
Not every day though, but it's like for a dad who maybe he travels a ton for work and they might be doing great financially, but he doesn't like that lifestyle. And he wishes he had more time to kind of just like do these one-off things at the drop of a hat, then what I talk about might be appealing. Oh, here's another way to have the financial taken care of, but live more of the lifestyle I want. So again, everybody, no matter where you are, there's something about your situation that other people want. And if you can figure out what that is and speak to it, then that can be a really strong foundation for this idea of personal brand.
Yeah, love that. We often are so blind to the things that are easy and normal to us that someone else might really want to learn about or know how to do. So I think that's a great point to add there. And then whatever small step helps you to kind of share that or run with that is a great place to go. It could be as simple as just you've been wanting to connect with someone or you want to learn more about what they're doing and you ask if you can maybe grab coffee with them like that.
Mhm.
That's the beginning of a personal brand.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah,
maybe unrelated, but exactly same kind of thing. So I love that. I just think uh it's becoming more and more of a quotes thing. And there's probably a lot of people who are either very early in that or still figuring that out. But I think kind of simplifying it down to just realizing what you have to share, which can benefit others, but also realizing the potential opportunities that can come out of that for your own life is such a worthwhile thing to pursue.
for sure.
Awesome.
Um,
Those were a little more like, yeah, that was good. That was good. The other ones I had were kind of less, what's the word? I don't know, philosophical, but
that's
I think,
philosophical. I think we could do like 2 minutes. I think we can end on one of them that is really fun.
okay.
What is a good offer that someone has pitched you?
Yeah.
And if we can end with that and then tease the fact that we've got, I think those top two topics go well together for next week, and then the week after that, uh, oh my gosh, we should record. We'll be live in person, man. Like we will be
Yeah,
physically hanging out. We should somehow find a way to just record a side by side and put that up. And then I'm sure we've got stuff to talk about for a few weeks after that too.
definitely. That'll be cool. Okay,
Well,
let's hit this last one quickly.
all right. Has what's a good offer someone has pitched you? And I think you specifically are talking about freelancing or agency. Man, I have a really hard time receiving cold pitches, even when they're good. But I have one that pops into mind is, oh gosh, I don't know if I've mentioned Travis Sago before,
I'm
but
familiar with him.
he's okay. So early on, I picked up a few of his low ticket pitches because I mean they were the way that he runs a pitch is so good. And what I realized is that what I really wanted to know is how he did that. And so I ended up in a very high ticket product of his because I wanted to know the secret sauce, and
Mhm.
it was great. Like one of the most expensive things that I've ever spent money on, but worth every dime. But it was man,
What was
uh,
that sales page or offer? What was
you know what it
the
was? There was no
yeah.
sales page.
Okay.
Like after I had made some of those initial purchases,
You
and
were sold.
there was some follow along, some follow up. Like he keeps track of who's actually implementing and making progress. And then and he also kind of gets an idea of your vibe.
Mhm.
And if you check the boxes, then one of his people reaches out and you get an invite and you discuss it in text messages. And then after that, they drop the payment link. That's
Cool.
it. So it's very, very, it feels very one to one. It doesn't, it's very different than like running traffic to a sales page, funnel, optimizing conversions. This is like, I want that guy. Let's see let's see if we can get him in.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Okay. I have two, and they're different, and they're good for different reasons. The first one I'm gonna give because it just stood out in so on Twitter. If anyone has any level of sort of participation on Twitter, DMs are there's lots of them. People are pitching left, right, and center, and I kind of scroll through. So these are in your message requests. They're pitching you on a service. I don't think I've had many in there that have excited me. Partially because I'm not the target audience for it, and partially because maybe that it's just bad the way they've reached out. I think that'd actually be another great topic, would be good ways to reach out to people. But the one that caught my eye, and I have not worked with this person, but I believe I will down the road, and they're kind of in the back corner, was a fairly simple offer, but it was for YouTube content, basically helping um, structure and then edit and then post and then research topics for YouTube content. And this is, I want to do more of YouTube. I've shared ideas on Twitter. I have sort of a newsletter. I have these different outlets. I've been wanting for a while to consolidate and create more videos on YouTube. But what I really get caught up in is some of the, we've managed it pretty well with this. We're doing the basics, but just some of these logistical, okay, I've got all these like content things, but like, what should I make into a YouTube video, or should I do the keyword research? All these little things. And so essentially this guy was kind of like, this is what I do. I've done it for these people. Here, you can see what they had no following. You can see what how their videos did. I don't even know if there may have been a guarantee like you'll get some level of views, but part of that was just me be like the right time in the right place. So I responded and I said, I can't do this right now, but I'm interested. So feel free to follow up. And I just want to identify maybe one thing that what makes something attractive. And I also met with an email guy who's just getting started and he's pitching a lot. And he was asking me, now that you get pitches, what sounds good? And usually it's making things easier for someone, not saying, can you go look at this 40-page doc I made on how to automate your business? I don't have like that's a chore. But when someone says, hey, you're doing some of this, I'd like to make it easier for you. I'm like, okay, I'm interested in that. The second one is just maybe just for encouragement, because I don't want to say like I felt sorry for this person, but like I respected the hustle so much that uh I gave her a shot. This was some girl on Instagram. I think she was in high school and she pitched me on posting on Pinterest for my brand. And the message just kind of caught my eye. I think she said something like, I'm trying to just make some extra money and get some side gigs going. Would you want me to like post on, it was a very almost vague offer. It's like, would you want me to post on like Pinterest or something for you? Or are you posting there? And I was like, you know what? I'm not sure what you can do, but this is very low hanging fruit. So sure, let's do a month. Let's make this happen. And I think it was a month or a couple months, and then she decided to do something else or something like that. But I was like, I respected that so much. And I was like, if more people would just bet on themselves and maybe just honestly reach out and say, hey, can I help with this? Like, I'm not sure what I could do, but like, I'll just go do it for you. There is that overlapping thing where it's like, I want to make this easy. Can I take some of your Instagram posts and start posting them on Pinterest? And I was like, that's great. So
Yeah.
those are my
Very
two.
different than the guy pitching Twitter growth strategies who has 72 followers.
Yeah, and what a it's so hard to say yes to that, first of all, because of the credibility, but second of all, what, you're gonna let them take your voice right away and start writing stuff on the, like, that is a much harder thing to say yes to. So
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
place for that if you're the right practitioner of the track record, but yeah, not yet. Awesome, dude. Well, that's great. I think we'll wrap it there.
Yep.
And we've got one more before Easter here, and then we'll have the hopefully an in-person interview coming up soon. So that's great. Another one wrapped up, and we'll see you guys next week. I don't remember how to stop this recording here.